So today, we're going to be studying something that's really, really interesting in animation, especially character animation, which is called the take, which is an extreme expression change, most likely due to some external force or sound. It could be as simple as a door slamming and it scares you. It could be as hard as being hit in the head by a brick. It could be as simple as slipping on a wet floor. So these are going to be examples where expression not only gets pushed to the limit, but almost gets exaggerated in order to make the point regarding the take that's required. Before I launch into the class, I want to remind everybody that, as you guys know, it doesn't look like we have anybody new on the call necessarily. Hey, Keen, how are you? Nice. Remember that we're a donation-based class. Anything you can do to help us with regards to a small donation or encouraging others to join the classes and thereby they make their donation, we would certainly appreciate it. Scott's going to put the link up on our chat, as we always do, and feel free to use it or to copy and paste it and send it to somebody who you think might be interested in joining the classes. So let me go quickly over to my down shooter environment. I just want to let you know the tools that we're going to be working with today. As you can see, I've got something set up here that is going to be very, very helpful. And these are what are called registration pegs along the bottom. So I have taped those to my Lightbox. And as you can see, there's a center round peg and there are two flat pegs on either side. This is a standard done by Disney, I think, or Cartoon Color, and basically makes for very good registration of what we call punched 12-field paper, which is what I have on here right now. It comes already punched. So if you ever want to get some registration paper, you want to buy this 12-field punched registration paper, and I'm sure over the course of your many classes, you'll get an idea of where you can get that punched paper. Next thing, I always like to have, as usual, my trusty ruler. That comes in handy. My tape here, in this case, blue tape, which I use to tape down my peg bar. Let me show you real quickly. So my peg bar was taped down to the bottom of my Lightbox. That way I can count on it being very, very stable. Then I place the paper over those peg bars and keep them in place here. All right. My usual tools, as you know, are first of all, a fine 2H pencil. In this case, it's a barrel turquoise pencil, but it's a hard lead 2H pencil. So that's always very good to have for initial light drawing. Then I like to move on, once I've roughed in with my light pencil, I like to move on to your classic high school pencil, which is what's called a 2B. That's a soft lead, 2B. Ticonderoga is the classic brand. As you can see, it's a typical yellow pencil with an eraser. Always have handy an eraser right here. I like to use, rather than using the eraser on my pencil, I prefer to use these white erasers because they're really good at not smudging, which is really great. This one's by Stadler Mars. Very, very good eraser to have. Comes with a reusable part, which I've already shown in the past. And then finally, I have 3 different Sharpies. I have a red Sharpie, and I'm using a red Sharpie along with black Sharpies today because I'm going to have some layers of animation to show you. And in order to differentiate those layers, the color that I'm going to use on that layer will be red, while the color on the rest of it will be black or pencil, one of the two. So my other 2 Sharpies are a thin Sharpie for roughing things in, and then finally a nice thick Sharpie here, which is used to do your rough drawing with, okay? All right, guys, so the story that we're going to tell, and I have in front of you what's called a storyboard. You who have joined me in the past know how important it is to do a storyboard so that you understand what exactly we're trying to tell in terms of a story. As you can see, we're going to introduce a character here. This guy is going to be called Snoozy. Snoozy has a tendency to be in the outfield of a baseball field falling asleep. Can't keep him awake because there's not much action going on. So Snoozy is going to be in the outfield, and we're going to do a close-up shot of him as we animate the take. Okay? He's in the outfield during a game, and during that game, somebody miraculously hits a home run bound hit. And I indicate this as a cut. So this is called a cut in a storyboard. You're moving away from the headshot and going to a cut of the ball hitting the bat and being sent up into the air. Then I cut back to Snoozy, and Snoozy suddenly hears the crack of the bat here. And that kind of alerts him a little bit, but he still doesn't quite know what's going on. Well, sure enough, because he's asleep in the outfield, that ball smacks him right in the head, as you can see here in this frame. And this is going to be our take frame right here. This is the frame where the ball impacts his head, okay? And then as is important in all animation, we have to deal with the reaction. So we have the anticipation here. Then we have the main action here in our take. And then we have the follow through here, where he basically is dizzy. As you can see, his hat's been flown off by virtue of the take frame here. The hat went flying off. He is now dizzy as all hell. You can see that indicated by the rotational stars running around his head, and the ball is falling to the ground at this point. And finally, he grows a little bump. See this little bump on his head? Okay. This is a classic example of a take animation here. Okay. So with that, I'm going to start going through my animation here, and feel free. I know, Cindy, you like to do this a lot. So do you, Liliana and Heather and others, but don't feel obligated to. You guys can actually sketch along the way with a character you want, or you can actually sketch my character, Snoozy, and just kind of go through the expressions that we're talking about, okay? So feel free to do that. So I'm going to take the storyboard off, and as I've told you in the past, it's always good practice to tape yours, or in this case, in the case of animation, it's the storyboard usually comes from the director. The director reads the script, dictates the story indicated in the script, and then he starts doing what's called blocking out the scenes. And that's what a storyboard does. It blocks out the scenes. So you set up your specific areas where you're going to cut camera and where you're going to create major leaps in the action. So the action may be very passive for a while, then change. That would be indicated in the storyboard when the action changes. Now, when the action holds, when we say hold, that means there's no motion in the action, then that can be just indicated with a single frame. But as you start to get to more complex motion, you have to start doing more frames on your storyboard in order to communicate exactly the motion that you, the director, want. Okay, so I'm going to tape that up here. And I'm going to bring in my first bunch of drawings here. I did all of my drawing before class here because I had to do some revisions, as you can imagine, and you will have to do revisions too. But I'm just going to walk you through the steps here real quick. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my background here. My background is going to be the character and all of his unmoving parts. I know, Cindy, you've done this in the past, so have some of the other students. I'm going to turn on my Lightbox now. And now, as you can see, I've got two layers. I've got a top layer, which includes his hat and his ears. And those are things that are not going to move during a large part of this scene. So I've moved those pieces to the background, okay? And finally, what I ultimately have in the background is the round shape of his head, okay? Now you're probably asking, why isn't the circle completed? And the reason the circle isn't completed is because his hat completes that and his head is underneath the hat. So if I were to have a completed circle there, you would be wondering, well, is the hat transparent or what? So in this case, we just simply cut the circle off. So now I have two layers that create the character's background here. These are things in the character that are not going to move. Then, on top of that, I'm going to place his eyes and mouth. Now, his eyes and mouth, as you can imagine, wow, Laura, you look like you got an expression going there. The eyes and the mouth are really the main components of the face that move, okay? So as a result, I put those on a third layer because those are going to be the predominant things that are going to move, are going to be his eyes and his mouth. So in this case, in order to show Snoozy, I developed the character so that he has some really nice droopy eyes because he's kind of a sleepy character, likes to be in the outfield, usually with his glove on his face, not even paying attention to the game at all. So Snoozy's out there going, boy, I can think of 100 different things I'd rather be doing today than playing baseball. But he's playing baseball. So Scott, before we get started, I want to go ahead and show the students some of the take material that I come up with when I'm designing characters here. Okay? So the first thing for you to do is you start to animate, first of all, extreme expressions and also areas that would include a take. You should do what's called a style sheet. So you take your character and you put him in a bunch of different expressional poses, all on a single piece of paper, something that you can distribute to your other animators or to your crew. If you have a crew animating, you can show them, this is what I expect the character to look like. First of all, when he's normal, you can see this character's name is Floppy. It's got floppy ears. So you can see that Floppy has a basic passive state in the upper left-hand area. Then I demonstrate a wink. So you can see a wink to the right. And then finally an uh-oh, what's going on expression. And then also a very angry expression where his ears go up and his teeth are clenched. And then finally an extreme laughing. And this style sheet is really, really important when you're doing animation. And it's also important for you, the animator, because you have a chance to quickly be able to animate some of the extreme expressions that you expect your character to go through. And that gives you a chance to explain that to other animators who may in fact be working with you on your project. So this style sheet becomes very, very important. Scott, can you move on to the next frame? So this is a page from Preston Blair's book that shows different characters in a take. I want you to spend some time looking at this. You can see that these are all expressions of either scared, surprised, accidental, but you can see that the characters' things are just, mouths are typically really big, ears are typically up in the air, eyes are almost popping out of their head. These are good take extremes that we need to communicate. And then often what I do is I look for examples of takes in my research, in my image research. Either it's by studying things out around as I'm walking down the street or I'm driving or something like that. So I'm going to quickly go through some of my image research relative to takes. Scott, could you advance to the next frame? Here's an example of a take frame. You can see that this person's head's just been completely twisted off right at the middle. This is an example of something that's hugely extreme, but you can get an incredible amount of emotion going. Let's go to the next one, Scott. Here's another one. Imagine somebody getting a big club in the face. It's hard to describe how you would actually be able to show that. But this is a puppet with a guy using a puppet to show an extreme push on the face. Go ahead. Next one, Scott. Another one where you just have this visual surprise. The body's upside down, but the head is right side up and he's yelling. Great visual imagery for takes and extremes. Let's go on to the next one. Another one where you have a character who's kind of pouty, you know, just got a spanking, didn't appreciate that. Let's go on to the next one. Here's one where somebody's extreme laughing, just throwing their head back, closing their eyes, throwing their mouth open. Great example of another take. And then move on, Scott. Here's our friend, the friendly fish, throwing you a smile. I don't know how they managed to get this photograph, but it looks just like something right out of Nemo or something like that, The Adventures of Nemo. You can see how funny even like characters in nature can do these take frames where you just have to study them with great detail. Okay, moving on to the next one. Here's an example of something that's just a visual surprise. A character who's walking across a bridge and her head is just smoke. Very unusual image, but nonetheless very, very exciting, very, very intriguing. And then finally, the last one, Scott. It's another example of a nice sculpture where somebody actually said, shh. So a really, really good example of just, again, another take. This might be a very subtle take, wherever the class is entirely rambunctious and the teacher has to go, shh. That can be a take, believe it or not. Okay, thanks a lot, Scott. If you don't mind, leave image number 2 up for me. Okay, guys, I want to leave that image up so that you can refer to some takes just as you are doing your animation along the way. So here's an example of my character, Snoozy, basically in his passive state. Let me move all the way to the next keyframe that I'm going to be using, which is going to be the take frame. The take frame is going to involve the ball coming into the scene. Whoop, excuse me, hold on a second. I have to get rid of all of these frames. And this is basically what our character is going to look like. Hat's going to be flying off. So this is a keyframe. Ball's going to be coming into frame. And our character's face is going to be completely contorted here. Can everybody see that? So you can imagine that this face, I'm going to turn off my Lightbox just so you can see. Look at how contorted that face is. Relative to these eyes. His eyes are basically bulging completely out of the sockets of his head. His face is completely contorted inward. And even his eyebrows are almost coming off his head there. Okay. So those two frames are going to be our extremes. So we've got our character here. Let me see if I can put him down below. I want you to just see these two extreme changes in character. Okay. There's the character when he's passively in the outfield waiting for nothing to happen. And then here's the character when he realizes, oh my God, I'm going to be caught off guard by this pop fly that's coming straight out towards me, and I'm not at all prepared to catch it. It's going to catch me right in the head. Okay. So let me put some of these frames back so that I can do the animation for you. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is set up my character, my passive character. This is Snoozy. Snoozy's in the outfield here. And oftentimes it's a good idea when characters are passive. When characters are passive, we like to blink the eyes because it's a very, very typical thing for a character to do. Basically, when you're sitting in front of the camera, you are constantly blinking your eyes. You blink your eyes all the time. And it makes a character feel much more believable when they blink their eyes. So here's an example of some animation that I'm going to do to simply blink the eyes. So I'm just going to lay this over. And you can now see the character basically blinking his eyes. So there he is. And that's really a good idea to do when you just have passive time sitting there. So when we get to the animation, when I show you the animation, you'll see a blink first. But look at how simple the animation is. It's just simply closing the eyelids, top and bottom, to a closed position, and then animating them backwards. So in other words, I have them numbered. You can see in the corner here, I have blink 1, and blink 2, B1 and B2. So the way I would create a blink is I would lay down blink 1, move on to blink 2, and then go back to blink 1 to open the eyes back up again, eventually returning back to my character in his static position here. Okay? So those are really good things to do to help a character feel alive during an otherwise passive time in his action. Okay? It's a simple blink. Okay? So during our character's time out in the outfield, our storyboard indicates, I'm going to pull the storyboard down. Our storyboard indicates here that there's going to be a smack off camera or a cut where the director literally cuts to the hitter's bat, close up of the bat, and you see the ball striking the bat, okay? That is going to create a sound, namely an impact sound, like that. And what's going to happen is our character is going to react to that. Notice how his ear has gotten real big, almost kind of going, did I hear something? What was that? So his ear's going to get big and his head might turn to kind of go, huh, what was that? Okay, that's indicated in the storyboard. Okay, so we want to make sure that we do that in our animation. So here's my character, and all of a sudden, smack. Well, here's what the character might do. You might actually kind of look to the side and go, did I hear something? And you can accentuate that by making his ear a little bigger. So as you can see, I'm going to put these two frames together. That smack happens real fast. So as a result, we can accomplish that in one frame. So here he is passively, kind of in the outfield, smack. And he's like, oh, what was that? You can see his eyebrow is slightly up here, kind of like, what was that? Always a good idea, by the way, when animating characters, guys, to have a mirror, a small mirror. It can be just a small mirror like this, but you should have it right next to your desk so that you can actually make the expressions in the mirror and be able to sketch them, okay? You always want to make sure you have a mirror. So here's our character. He's out in the outfield snoozy. He hears this smack off camera and he kind of goes, hey, what was that? Then he's back to being his usual passive self. Nothing surprises him. So he's off. And now we're going to start the impact of the ball. Okay? So the first thing that's going to happen is suddenly this ball is going to come screaming into frame from the left side. Okay? So he hasn't even reacted yet. He's like, la-di-da, nothing really going on. But look at what happens when he doesn't pay attention. Okay? When he doesn't pay attention, he's going to be impacted by that ball. So here's an example of where the ball is starting to hit him, okay, and his face is starting to contort. And his cap is starting to fly off here. Can you see that? So you can imagine that the majority of his body is, because this ball is moving so fast, the majority of his head is not going to move. Only the impacting part is going to move. And it's going to be compressed into his head. Just going to be compressed in like that. I added some speed lines to the ball so that you can emphasize the speed, because the ball is going from, it's going all the way from out here all the way to here in one frame. So it's moving very fast. It's going to go boop. It's a really fast moving ball. Okay, so he's starting to get impacted here. Then we're going to have the full impact with his hat fully flying off. Okay, so we're going to switch out the hat as an element. We're going to get his full take frame here, where his hat is being just completely thrown off to the left. His face is contorted in the middle. And then the ball is impacting him. I'll actually put the face on the top. So you can see here with this take, you've got the most dramatic frame in the storyboard indicated right here. So you've got all the motion. You've got the extreme motion of his hat flying off. Also very distorted in terms of motion. You got the hat moving to the left. You got the face moving to the right. That creates a sense of extreme impact, extreme impact. And then, of course, you've got the distortion of his face. It's a good idea when shooting, you hold that distortion for 2 frames. So you shoot it once, and then you shoot it twice, because that's where the ball is the deepest in his face, and then it's going to fall out. So in order to create that stop, you have to shoot the extreme frame twice. So you shoot it twice so that it has a chance to reverse back. You'll see that in the animation when I show you. Okay? And then what we have is the recoil. The recoil of this character let me see if I'm getting all my drawings mixed up. So here it is recoiling back. Wrong ball. Oh, here it is. Yeah. So here's the ball. There are no more speed lines. Okay. There are no more speed lines because the ball has been fully absorbed by the character. So the speed lines are not necessary on the ball, and the ball is moving very, very small increments now because it's going to fall to the ground. And you can see that his hat has completely flown off. It's heading off into the distance here at that point. And you can see the recoil of the face going back now to its normal position. And then finally, what you're going to end up with is the ball is going to be falling to the ground. Okay. Let's see here. Now I have a different background because now you can see his entire head. See his entire head here? And a rough outline. Here starts his recovery. So as you can see, the ball has now bounced. His head now has recoiled all the way back to normal. His eyes are open, and you can probably just barely see up here. I'm going to start animating some stars going around his head here. So there's frame 1. Frame 2. You can see that I'm kind of fading in. So in other words, I started drawing these stars lightly, and then I'm going to increase the pressure on my pencil so that I can start to see the star animation better. The other thing I'm doing is I'm kind of puckering his lips. I don't know if you can see that here, but I'm kind of puckering his lips, kind of like he got his head knocked, bang, and then he went, whoa. So he's kind of puckering his lips. Look at my face here. Ball comes in, he's sitting here casually. Ball comes in, smack, his head gets pushed way over to the side, his hat goes flowing off. He comes back, kind of shakes things off, and goes, woo, like that. So that's his lips starting to pucker here as the stars kind of go around. See his lips completely puckered here? Kind of gone, whoa, like that. So he started with his regular mouth and then kind of went, whoa. And then you can see the stars kind of animating. You'll notice one other thing that's starting to happen here. And it started in this frame too. See this little bump happening on the side of his head? That little bump is starting to grow. Okay? And you can see that I've only put it in the parts of the frame that are changing. My background completes the character because those areas are not changing. The circle of his head and his ears. But he's starting to grow a little bump here on the left-hand side of the character. So these things are kind of spinning around, and those are animating, by the way. You can't tell it, but they are. And his lips are now returning to normal as the bump grows. You can see the bump starting to grow out of his head. But his woo has kind of gone down to normal now. His head is still spinning, but the bump is growing. You can see how the bump is slowly growing out. That's done over a lot of frames because it's a slow grow. It's growing slowly, so you have to put more frames. More frames equal slower motion. And then finally, the character gets back to his normal expression, but he's got something added on his head now, which is a bump. So we're back to our classic pause frame for the character, droopy eyes, but now he's paid the price of that take. Basically waiting there. Waiting for the next thing. So I'm going to go back to my storyboard and just make sure that I've got all the motion here. So our story was, we got Snoozy in the outfield here, not paying attention as usual. We have an interruption to his very casual day in the ballpark by the smack of a home run bound hit. We hear it nice and loud, pack, in the background. Then we get his reaction to that pack by going, whoa, did I hear something? Then we go to the take frame where the ball literally comes out of nowhere and hits him in the head. Okay? Then we have the reaction to that take by the ball falling to the ground slowly and him coming up dizzy with stars spinning around his head and the growing of a horn, or not a horn, but rather a bump, a nice big bump here. Which, by the way, if you ever watch Warner Brothers animation, Chuck Jones's animation in particular, whenever a character runs into something, he almost always grows a bump. And it usually does something like carries a hat up. Like if the character had a hat on and he suddenly got bonked by a hammer, the bump will grow, and actually his hat will grow right up with the bump. It's hilarious. Makes it super, super funny. So that's an example of a take. And then I'm going to show you real quickly. We've got about 15 minutes, and I want to make sure we share. I'm going to go ahead and take my camera. So I went ahead and shot that animation. I shot it with my phone, as I've done in the past. Very easy to do. And I'm going to show you the animation now. Okay, I'm going to slide over here so that you can see the animation. And watch the character here. see if I can get it. Okay, I think I went all the way to the end of the animation. Let me try and scroll back. So here he is with his cap on. And he gets impacted. Boom. And the stars are kind of animating around his head. There. See that, guys? Can everybody see that? Raise your hand, just put a thumbs up if you could see it. Excellent. I'm going to play it one more time. Here we go. I'll slow it down for you so you can actually see the take frame here. Ball comes in from the left. His hat goes flying off. And he grows his bump. There you go. All right, guys. So again, shooting your animation, once you start to have layers, it becomes really important that you keep track of your drawing. So you have to number everything in the lower right-hand corner, number every drawing, and it should have some relevance to the scene, such as background number 1, BG. I just use the abbreviation BG. Background number 1. Then on top of that should be the ball. Ball entering 1, BA1, BA2, BA3. That's the ball entering. Then I have the take, T1, T2, T3. And then I have the hold, literally frame H1, where the character is not doing anything, just holding. And I shoot it over and over and over again. So in other words, there's no motion happening then. That's what we call a hold. You're holding your animation there, and then you're going to start flipping the drawings when the action starts, such as blinking or anything like that. Okay? So with that, I'm going to open it up. Does anybody want to share?
I want to share.
Great. Who is that?
Me.
Okay. Is that Nathaniel?
Yes.
Okay, Nathaniel, let's do it, buddy.
So I'm working on the animation you made, but instead it's before the ball hit your character. So this is just a few images. I have all the animations done.
Very good.
I would like to share. Here's Cindy.
Hi, Cindy. How are you?
Doing good. All right.
Good.
I'm going to show you the bird from last week that
Excellent.
I've been
Good.
polishing up, and I think I'm going to use what happens in this animation to do a take from, and you'll see what I
That's
mean.
a great idea.
Okay, so
this is going, Cindy, correct me if I'm wrong, this is your cycle, right?
right.
Good.
Okay. Whoops, wrong button. Okay.
Excellent. Look at that. Oh, did I see you even had a little mistake along the way? That is great. And I love the way you have the head bobbing. So as the wings come up, the head goes down, and vice versa. When the wings go down, the head goes up.
So I
Very
thought maybe
nice,
I could do
Cindy.
a reaction of the person getting pooped on and put that in the middle.
I like that.
There.
That'll be a good take for sure. Who's not surprised when they get pooped on? Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. You're putting together a nice story here. I like it. By the way,
Yes,
Cindy,
it's a
you
nice
might want
story.
to, yeah, you might want to consider doing a storyboard because you're going to have cuts. It sounds like you're going to cut away from the
Yeah.
fly cycle to the character getting pooped on. So you might want to do a storyboard on that.
Yeah, it's getting, I was doing just writing it down verbally, but I may have to actually do a visual story.
It would be a good idea. It will help you as you start to put together your keyframes. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
You bet. Well done. I love it. Okay, who's next?
I think Laura was next.
Okay, Laura?
I'm gonna share screen, so one moment. Tell me when you can see my screen so I can start.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I'm still putting in the in-betweens, but that's what I got.
That is nice. But what is that? Is that wind blowing in the hair?
Yep,
Super nice. So out of curiosity, that's a cycle. How many frames are in your cycle?
60.
Oh, I don't think it'll be 60. How many unique frames are in your cycle? Probably
Oh,
3.
6.
I would guess. 6?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Nice. So that's pretty tight. That's pretty tight. Can you run it again?
Yes, I can.
Very nice. And I love the way you've put things on different layers. Only animating the parts that are moving. Otherwise, the stagnant or non-moving parts are on the background. That's very, very nicely done. Well done.
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Anybody else? Okay. I want to go back, if you don't mind, Scott, can you put up image number 2 again for everybody? Okay, guys, I would really like you to spend some time studying this. This is an example by Blair Preston. He's considered the god of animation in terms of authoring great books. But take a look at all the different takes you have here. You have a character actually pulling his mouth apart, like this. You have a squirrel coming in from a tree, he's basically landing. Whoa! Then you have stuff like, I just ate an ant or something. You're like, in fact, one of the takes that Naleen was saying on her class is what's called a spit take. So literally, how does a character spit? How does he? That's an example of a take. So how does he recoil? Spit, his lips will probably get really long, and then they'll retract very quickly. That's another great take to work on. A spit, they call it a spit take. And then you can see other ones like, it looks like the doctor with the glasses are actually throwing off his face. They're literally like just going, whoop, his clothes are almost up in the air in fright. So these are great, great examples of takes. Really nicely done. Okay, did anybody want me to go back to any part of the animation?
I think actually Kat would like to share something.
Oh, nice, Kat, please do.
So I just have a drawing to share. It's not part of an animation or anything. It's just a new character and a new style. I'm trying out to see if I like it.
Oh, wow, that is fantastic. Man, what a great character. Now, out of curiosity, what inspired this character? Did you see something in nature, or did you read a book or something?
No, it just kind of popped into my head. I hadn't really drawn this particular type of character in a while. I've just been drawing dragons mostly, but I felt like drawing this, so I just got out my sketchbook and
Good for
drew
you.
it.
Good for you. Well, I can tell you, Kat, that along with everybody else in the class, having a handy sketchbook in your possession always is a great idea, because you never know when you're going to run across something in your daily life where you want to quickly jot down an expression or take a note or something like that. I know a lot of animators typically have a pocket pad that they have in their back pocket, and when they come across something, as an example, a cat meeting a dog, they study that motion with great detail. They actually want to see, what does the cat do and what does the dog do? Who's the aggressor? Who's the prey? You know, and those kind of different reactions can play into how you actually create characters and tension in a scene, which by the way, end up being the most memorable parts of typically an animation. What are those take frames where the extremes, both in perspective as well as in tension, are at their maximum point? And oftentimes, animators will see those things just in their daily life, and they'll quickly pull out their sketchbook and go, I saw this character that just did something completely, like brought his hand up like this. A cat, you know, might be like, ah, like that. And he'll just want to quickly be able to sketch that out and remember it. Okay, guys. Well, if there isn't any more questions, I hope you'll encourage your friends to join. It's always fun, even if they only join for a single class, just come in and see what animation's all about. We're going to be working on next week. We're going to be working on stop motion, which is a whole nother form of animation that'll be a lot of fun. We're actually going to be using moving parts around on the screen rather than drawing. We're going to be actually moving parts around single frame by frame, and then running that animation at speed so that we can see what happens when we move objects and then play them back at speed. So it'll be a lot of fun. We'll have a great time.
Actually,
All right, Scott,
Boogie, it looks like Tater would like to share something.
Oh, fantastic. Tater.
Yeah, hey, I got a character concept, cause since my animation contains violence, I figured that would probably not be best to share, but I got this character concept that's a bit of a work in progress.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot. Does he have a name yet?
No, I've just kind of been referring to him as the apothecary because he does potions and poisons and stuff like that.
Oh, that's so cool.
Some of the burn scars on his arm.
Nice. And am I seeing the drawing correctly in that he's half clothed? In other words, he's missing his left sleeve?
Yeah, like this is the original color, and then I did some tweaking for the color to see what other like I could do.
Nice.
But yeah, he's missing a sleeve because hey, why not?
Hey, why not? Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what characters are about. It also creates that nice, I know that Naleen has talked a lot about asymmetry. Oftentimes asymmetry can be a very memorable thing in an audience's consciousness, because we're so used to being completely symmetrical left and right. And when you break that symmetry, you're able to create a more memorable moment in the storytelling. So even creating a character that is asymmetrical will create a lot of dynamic energy. Because again, we're not used to seeing, even animals are symmetrically equal on the left and the right. And if you suddenly create a character that is asymmetrical, you can create, again, a memorable character because it's not what we typically see in our daily life. Okay. All right, guys. Well, if there are no further questions, I want to thank you again, remind you that, invite your friends to join. And if you have the opportunity to make a donation, we would certainly appreciate it. It's chuckjonescenter.org. Once again, that's chuckjonescenter, one word.org. All right. And Scott, did you have anything you wanted to finish with?
I just wanted to say thanks to everyone for coming, and I love this month. I think it's been a fun month so far, and I'm really looking forward to next week.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. We'll have a good time. We'll set up stop motion, which I haven't done in a long time, so we'll see how it works out. It may not be all that exciting, or it may be very exciting. We'll see.
I think it's going to be very exciting.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, thanks again. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
Boogie.
you.
Bye, guys.
See you next week.
Yep.